Well, this if we are going to call this a case of domestic terrorism, it would go along with a lot of the domestic terrorism that has been on the rise over the last, 18 months or so, and particularly since Barack Obama has been elected president and has assumed that presidency. One of these groups are different types of neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups, and a lot of them are getting bolder every single day, including a lot of unapologetic Nazis that are coming out of the woodwork. Neo-Nazis and far-right extremists, number one, are recruiting much more openly. And for some reason, since Barack Obama has become president, it has somehow become more acceptable among these groups to recruit openly. They're being much more public in their expressions of racism, nativism, xenophobia, and unlike David Duke, these characters aren't even trying to hide it. David Duke ostensibly was not publicly saying a lot of the things that he would write about or post on the internet about, and so on and so forth. Hate groups are feeling bolder than they have in over a decade, according to several studies. And I think that their anger is starting to spill over into the public realm. The National Socialist Movement, which is a neo-Nazi organization, recently held rallies in Arizona and Minnesota, and some white supremacists were forced to disband by rock-throwing counter-protesters. I guess that's good to hear. The outcries of the right-wing Tea Parties, the death panels, the birthers, these are likely accompanied by overall increased activity along what some are calling the paranoid fringe. And we know a lot about that paranoia. It's kind of a beehive now, says James Kavanaugh, who's a special agent with ATF. We haven't had this kind of activity since the 1990s. Lieutenant David Hall says, we believe there is a real resurgence. The atmosphere is ripe. So what about the atmosphere is ripe? Is the atmosphere that we have a black president? I mean, is that what they're talking about?
That's part of it.
What else? What else is part of this atmosphere that's ripe for Nazis and white supremacists?
Well, that shooting we were just talking about, for example, I'm sure they're coming up with all sorts of different,
You're probably right. That is going to be able to be used almost as a recruiting tool.
Yeah.
Look at
naturally.
what these Muslims are getting into the military. They're staying in the military for 25 years as sleepers, and then they're killing 13 people.
Sure. Yeah.
Even though it is hard to believe. I mean, it's almost as hard to believe as the Barack.
But some young, impressionable, uneducated person.
Well, it's no harder to believe than some of the Al-Qaeda recruiting tactics, right? I mean, it's not that different in a sense.
Right.
Anybody who was in Phoenix, Arizona over the past weekend is going to be, I assume, or were hit head on with this much bolder form of white supremacy that's been going on. I want to play a bit of an interview for you by J.T. Reddy of Mesa, Arizona, who spoke at the America First rally. He says that his group is defending his country against invaders. Which invaders? Well, anybody who's not white. Take a listen.
Held beliefs.
Do you consider yourself a National Socialist?
National Socialist, I am.
Weren't Nazis considered National Socialists?
Well, there's a term that starts with an N for calling black people, too. So I think that the N term for National Socialists, by calling them the Nazis, is the same thing.
Most extremists now use the internet to spread their message. They have their own social networks like newsaxon.org. Reddy's page can be found there. He goes by Viking Sun.
Name is Viking Sun, correct?
That's correct.
You wrote this. The Jew is a two-legged cancer which corrupts and putrefies all that is natural and noble upon this earth. Did you write that?
I sure did.
Can you explain?
Yes, I can explain that because anywhere where Jews have been able to congregate in any number, they have looked after not only their own, but they've worked to subversively destroy that nation or people that they've come into contact with.
Here's another photo from Reddy's webpage. He's the one on the left giving a Nazi salute. Here's another one. Reddy is marching in Omaha, Nebraska with the National Socialist Movement. He's the one in the suit.
Okay, so you are a National Socialist.
Absolutely.
And a Nazi is a bad word for National Socialist.
A Nazi is a word that's been used to associate with the Holocaust and many other, media-inspired things.
Holocaust? Many neo-Nazis say the Holocaust never happened.
I'd love to see the forensics on that anytime. I've been over to Auschwitz. I'd love to see it. It's not there, though. That's the reality.
History records that Nazi Germany murdered more than 6...
Okay, so we have here a Holocaust denier who believes that the Jews ruin any country that they go to, but most countries have Jewish people, right?
I think so.
And so has every country been ruined? I mean, maybe they would argue that it has. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't see a point in arguing with people like this.
No, but this is exactly, I mean, and by the way, he was all upset that he doesn't want people calling him a Nazi. He's a
in all
National
these pictures,
Socialist.
by the way, in all these pictures where they're talking about him, there's like swastikas everywhere.
Right.
So,
including probably on his, I think he had some swastika armbands even.
probably.
So it's true that the German National Socialists didn't actually ever call themselves Nazis because it was thought to be a derogatory term. But on the other hand, American Nazis like George Lincoln Rockwell have always embraced the word. So why should anybody stop calling them what they plainly are? He wants to get upset over being called a Nazi, fine, but the fact that he's saying there's no forensic evidence that the Holocaust ever happened makes it so that, what is going to be the national reaction to these groups? We know that they are not in the mainstream media. There's some reporting about them, but they are becoming emboldened. And the fact that a black president is making it more acceptable in some circles to openly recruit for these groups is concerning. And we know that there's more death threats than ever against Barack Obama. We'll continue to keep an eye on this. I don't know. What else would you say?
I'm sure, we're going to hear more from people from Tea Parties and more protests, and as we go on here.
That's absolutely right.